Welcome everyone to our panel discussion on the state of FinOps 2025. We're honored to have with us such a broadly experienced panel today with cross-industry and persona perspectives. We're going to be exploring with our panelists their perspectives on a selection of findings from the state of FinOps data and also gaining insight into their future priorities. We will first start with introductions. So Madoc, could you please introduce yourself and your background to the audience?
Yeah, hi, my name's Madoc. I work for Warner Hotels. We're a staycation company in the UK. We have 16 beautiful properties across the UK, giving short breaks for adults.
And Rachel?
My name is Rachel Ryan. I'm the head of IT asset management. Slightly different to FinOps, but quite similar at Danske Bank. So, yeah, pleased to be here.
Brilliant. And Carlos?
Well, I'm Carlos Galán. I am a FinOps practitioner for the Just Eat Takeaway group. And I think I've been, next month, should be 4 years as a practitioner, as a FinOps practitioner so far. So yeah, nice to see you.
Thank you, everyone. So Madoc, over 60% of practitioners in the state of FinOps 2025 indicated that they're already actively managing AI costs. Given your experience in FinOps for AI and your upcoming Chalk Talk today, what should practitioners be considering when managing AI spend?
So I'd like to, thanks for that question, Dean. I'd like to boil it down to 4 different areas. So the first one is strategy. Strategy is obviously very, very important, but you need to know whatever you're doing and you're thinking about doing now, it's very possible it's going to change within the next 6 months. We're at unprecedented time at the moment where AI is moving so fast. So you have to build a compostable strategy where you can switch sections of that in and out. You might even want to run a multiple strategy, just like an MVP, but for a strategy. Within that strategy as well, you need to make sure that you get buy-in from your leadership, give a really simple message, maybe even boil it down to what makes a better operating system for your team, make your team be able to deliver what they need to do easier, and make it easier for your customers to be able to purchase from you as well.
It's really, really interesting. I think it relates a lot back to JR's keynote as well in terms of managing scopes and the different types of patterns that are applied to the FinOps capabilities and the personas that are involved in that. And the state of FinOps data showed that when managing the scope of AI, there was a prioritization of capabilities different to that of scopes, which is obviously what's come out there. Are you also seeing spend on AI all reside in the public cloud, or are you seeing that across other scopes as well?
Again, it comes down to your strategy. It's what you believe you need to be able to take forward to give a great solution for your company. Find out what you're trying to solve, and then use appropriately what is on-prem, or what is private, and what is public cloud. Initially, when you're trying to move very fast, you need to build up a framework to enable your strategy for success. So lean towards infrastructure as code, lean towards being able to enable rapid distributed change management, and push as much as you can left, push your guardrails left. FinOps is a team game, so you need to have all your engineers and all your developers taking part and delivering that right at the start, right when they're deploying those resources.
Yeah. So FinOps is definitely a team game, and it's definitely the intersection of FinOps with other personas, other intersecting disciplines, and then making sure no matter what the platform that you're adding value from a FinOps perspective, and that collaboration is key there. And I think it's really interesting from the data as well that we're seeing spend, as JR pointed out, on across all of the different platforms, primarily public cloud, but also from the data itself as well, we did see a skew in financial services particularly, who were spending more outside of public cloud. So again, it comes to the point of it depends on the organizational needs, it depends on the strategy for the application of that AI. So that's very interesting. Thank you, Madoc. And Rachel, on this one, it was found that 40% of FinOps practitioners are already managing SaaS spending, and over 65% are expected to be doing so within the next 12 months. Given your leadership in ITAM and FinOps, what do you think are the reasons behind this trend?
Well, I think the old world was all on premise. So, IT asset management practitioners were looking at sort of ensuring that we were spending enough, and that we were compliant. So now it's moved very much, when we move to the SaaS world, it's that overspend. So we've all had applications on our phones that we've accidentally renewed that we didn't want to. Obviously in the infrastructure world now, we're looking at cloud spend. It's overspending and controlling that. So, all of our teams now are looking, how do we control the costs of SaaS? How do we manage it? How do we track it? How do we attribute costs? How do we work with the application owners to make sure that they have all the correct information so that they can right size? So it's now very much around controlling overspend and right-sizing rather than the old world of compliance. And the other thing as well, from an ITAM point of view, we're very much working very closely with cloud and SaaS around, at the start of the projects, making sure that they are not suddenly having that, they call it the hockey stick effect, don't they? Have you forecasted, what the impact is going to be, so that you can then, right size it at the beginning. So now this world of SaaS is now sort of inflated a lot more, and we're having to move with the times. But I think, ITAM practitioners, we're all set up with those correct skills really for that.
That's really interesting, and I think in the recent FinOps for SaaS paper as well, it was showing the difference and the emergence of new pricing models and how consumption-based pricing models were becoming more and more apparent in day-to-day SaaS purchases, and even value-based pricing models emerging in the space of AI. And I think collaboration, again, is coming up as key. It's not that ITAM can't manage that spend, it's that the different teams have different capabilities and they're better together as one there. And because of this change and what we're seeing in that space, how do you foresee the interactions between FinOps and ITAM teams evolving to accommodate this new landscape?
I think we have a good skill set. If you think about the thousands of different software out there with the multiple different ways of measuring it, one of the things we've always struggled with is what we call non-instance based data. So you can get tools, you can get information, that's fine, but it's the non-instance stuff, which is very much like the cloud stuff. We've got to think of different ways as to how to measure things. So we can take that skill set and we can work with procurement, with the cloud engineers, and finance around sort of showing them that information, what it actually means, the different licensing rules, the different cost models and things like that. So, and I think another thing that we're quite good at is the policies, the governance, the processes, because we've all started with data, but it's what you do with that data afterwards. How do you control everything? So for me, it's very much around how do we work with those different personas around controlling the environment, putting those checkpoints in place, putting those processes in place, and then also afterwards how we can do the reporting, how we can do the dashboards and, give them that information back.
Yeah, so it's definitely, again, definitely a team sport in terms of the collaboration between the teams and the value that they bring. But most importantly, it's getting a control as teams over that data, and that's what we're seeing again in the FinOps for SaaS paper, that having that inventory and that understanding of the SaaS first and getting a handle around that between the teams that are involved in it, and then getting an understanding of the spend and working together to get control on that, to optimize that. It is all coming out in this paper from the practitioners and giving the practitioners here and in the community that guide in terms of considerations across the different FinOps capabilities when applying it to the scope of SaaS. So it's really interesting you're seeing that as well, Rachel. So Carlos, with practitioners being asked to apply FinOps to scopes of spend outside of public cloud and do more, it seems, do you think they're at a risk of being stretched too thin? And what suggestions would you give them to be able to work on more scopes whilst maintaining the quality?
Yeah, well, this is, I guess, an eternal question on how to do more with less, right? It's always been like that, and we definitely see a trend across industries, across functions. I think in the terms of the FinOps world, it does help to a little bit go back to the fundamentals and go back to that idea that FinOps is everyone's job, right? It's very easy because you have a FinOps title, you're part of the FinOps team to say, no, we need to do this job. And you just try to take more ownership than you actually should. The same thing that when you go from an individual contributor to a manager position, you still want to have control over things. It's just about learning how to give out control, but also to orchestrate, right? So very important. So what we've done is, I think JR mentioned this on the keynote around how you use the FinOps framework, right? So we take the FinOps framework and we create our version of what we think our practice should look like based on our situation in a way that we can communicate who we are, what we're doing, and how can we work together. A little bit of like a compass, you can say that, in that sense. So what we have done is just created 4 pillars to try to explain sort of what we are and how can we work together. First, we start with data, and it's making sure that we have accurate and timely data access from all the different sources of cloud spend, and also acknowledging that there's some other parts of the organization that also work with different parts of or different sources of data that actually can help us to inform the FinOps strategy. You know, it's just it's a me and a you team. The same thing with the second pillar, which is culture. And we talked about this on the FinOps X event in Barcelona, how we create an understanding, an awareness of what FinOps is, why it's important, and how can we actually making sure that, let's call it the masses, understand the message, which is all the engineering teams, but also the senior leadership understands what is happening, how can we actually create that sort of push-pull mechanism, no? a little bit of a flywheel, what I'm saying. And then we have a third pillar, which is optimization. Obviously, we want to go there. This is where we actually tell engineers, this is where we're actually expecting more of you, especially on the usage-based side of things. And finally, controls, right? So it's all about making sure that, mitigate anomalies, keep governance, and I guess it's the way that we have set out what we do and how can we help together. And it continues to evolve in a way. We set up those 4 pillars, and so far in the last 2 years, we have kept them. The definitions are still there, but in a way, the composition of who does what has slightly evolved. That makes sense.
Yes, thank you. So it really does depend then on the organization and the setup, and that answer touched on a number of the points from the Booking.com presentation, I think, there, in terms of where you need to start is dependent on the organizational priorities and the highest value, and making sure that, yes, if you're being asked to do more scopes of spend, that you're setting yourself up in a way, 1, to deliver that scope, and 2, in a way that's right for your organization. And as part of that, and as part of still the risk of the teams being stretched too thin, are you seeing policy and process automation used more often to support that?
There is a drive towards this, and we have seen an evolution a little bit into the policy process bit for the last, I'd say, 12 months. There's a culture to write things down, as I come from the Amazon family, which is one of the things, brought from there. Actually, it does work. It helps you to keep yourself honest and structured. And also we have the internal audits. People sometimes they fear the internal audits coming in, but actually one of the things that they have been helpful with us is to have that sort of external eyes to sort of understand what is it that even though we consider ourselves experts, there's actually more to that, because there's also they provide an understanding of the business that maybe we don't have, and an understanding of the actual audit practice, right? So that's something that we have definitely seen come up, I guess, in the business in the last 12 months, for sure. That's
interesting. Thank you. So thanks, Carlos and Rachel and Madoc. Those were hugely insightful answers there, and lots for everyone to take into consideration and into the conversation throughout the day. I just want to go now to the same question for each of you. The state of FinOps showed that for practitioners in the next 12 months, governance and policy at scale was number 1, and a future priority of managing additional scopes of spend is hugely increasing, to the keynote slide that Jar started to go through. What are your top priorities in the next 12 months? Madoc, if you'd like to go first.
Well, I don't know if they're going to be different in 6-12 months' time for my priorities now, but yeah, the priorities, I think, going back, it's getting the strategy right, getting the governance right, getting the observability right, and then being able to optimize on that data you've collected from the observability. But it's all a focus on getting the best from AI within your business, finding out exactly what problems you want to fix, communicating it clearly to your leaders to get buy-in, and making sure that you put a fast, reliable foundation in place that allows you to move quickly, to deploy what you need to do. And as Carlos said, the organizational structure, the culture, super important. You need to make sure that you have teams set up in a way they can all be part of a guild, like a FinOps guild. You have a member within those streamlined teams that can do FinOps. All the developers have those FinOps tools and visibility in the pipelines when they're delivering resources. So it's very key that everybody's in it together. It's a team game. And just make sure it's more available. Communication flow is really smooth between the teams. And just make sure everybody buys into FinOps, because it's a really important part of every business now.
And is AI spend becoming a big priority for your FinOps team then? Are you starting to set up to manage that AI spend and interact with specific personas around the organization and build a new priority of capabilities to the JR talk?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you need to, we were talking about educating people within AI. For certain people, that's really important. For others, maybe not spend so much time trying to educate people. You just need to start the journey, give the simplicity of what that will give to your internal teams and your customers, and how much easier they can interact with your products and your systems.
Great, thank you. And Rachel, your 12 months priorities?
I think from the FinOps point of view, it's going to be around the governance and the virtual team. FinOps is, within our engineering team, and we've been collaborating with them. We're quite good at the maturity assessments and that type of thing. So we've been looking at the maturity, where we are with all the different personas. We can see we're really good in some spaces, but then, other areas we need to mature. So it's working in that collaboration and bringing all the right people together. I think we're quite good as ITAM professionals as being that glue in the middle. So we are having, general calls with all the different types of personas, sort of saying where we are, what do we need to focus on, what's the next 12 months going to look like. That's from a FinOps point of view. From a SaaS point of view, we've been on a journey for the last couple of years around the discovery, because it's not easy to discover. So now that we've got all of that information, it's bringing it back to our leadership team to show them, the areas where we need to really get a grip. Do you know what I mean? It's not like the old world where some things were locked down. It's a lot easier. I know that we were talking about before about coming out of the COVID pandemic, where everything just went a little bit, everybody was, looking at SaaS. So now that we've got some of that data, it's about the governance element, getting some policies in place, getting some processes in place, going back and doing that show back. Do you know that we're using this when we've got this? So I think the next 12 months is very much about the general governance and strengthening the governance, and then trying to get all the costing and the financial information against that SaaS, so we can look what the size of the problem is and see how we can optimize.
And with your role being the ITAM lead, is there any specific capabilities you're looking for the FinOps team to provide as a priority, or to upskill your team in as a priority around the FinOps capabilities in the framework?
That's a difficult one, because we have quite a few FinOps practitioners within my team. In fact, we have the majority of FinOps practitioners. Right. Yeah, so I think it's, for us, working with the FinOps team, it's about learning their experience, their skill, how we can work with them, because it is a slightly new capability for us. So I think it's going to be about that shared knowledge and shared learning, so we can upskill our team with some of the capabilities and knowledge and some of the issues and problems that they're facing. Like with anything, it's about getting to know some of the challenges from other business areas, so that we can see where we've got that commonality in issues, especially around the unit economics. That's really important to be able to see, the total cost of ownership of services and things like that, and the financial management. So I think it's just going to be about learning together, I think.
Brilliant. So that's interesting. You're actually building up the FinOps skills within your ITAM team itself and blurring the lines between the two.
Yeah, yeah.
That's interesting. Thank you. And Carlos, for yourself, your 12 months priorities.
Well, it is a struggle, Dean, right? So it's, again, going back to doing more with less, right? So I think we have come up with kind of 3 groups of things that we want to do in the next months. Again, 6, 12, who knows? But that's it's the near future. And on the culture side, we definitely want to, one of the big things that we do, the most time that we spend on is doing storytelling, right? Making sure that we provide the right level of information to different personas in the business. We want to get to the sort of a 2.0 level in terms of storytelling. That's one side. Another side is that in terms of scopes, right? So we have been doing most of our FinOps work around where we spend most of our, where we have most of our cloud spend, one particular provider. But in the last 2 or 3 years, we have been increasingly spending more on another secondary provider and on SaaS solutions, right? So we definitely want to, sometimes I use the word annexation, but that has different connotations sometimes, but it's pretty much bringing them into the FinOps practice, right? So these other providers. And then number 3, again, governance. We're definitely looking into things and incorporating our anomaly detection process into our more, let's call it the overall production incident sort of process within the large organization, as well as there's a little experiment that we're doing in terms of using AI for FinOps, in terms of in the governance space, in terms of tagging. How can we actually find owners of runaway spend? So that's also some things that largely speaking, those 3 areas. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Carlos. And you mentioned there a bit about the business side of things and working with the business. Why is working with the business more of a priority? Has that always been a priority? Are you seeing yourself pulled more to work up at the business level as a FinOps team?
It hasn't been always a priority, but I think the feedback that we get is that, again, we need more from you, direct from the business, right? So with engineers, it's more us trying to do an outreach. With the business, it's more like we need a bit more of structure around how you interact with us, and that's why precisely we want to focus. That's why from the 3 areas, the first one that I mentioned was actually the storytelling, because there's definitely more things that we can do there for sure.
That's really interesting. So the FinOps teams are being used to the storytelling side of the business. They're able to operate up at that business level and use the common lexicon that the business want to hear. It's starting to all come together, I think, in terms of the messaging. Well, thank you all so much. That was very insightful and a great breadth of knowledge you shared with us all. So it was a real pleasure for that talk. Thank you.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. I hope you enjoy this video as much as I enjoy sharing all of these amazing FinOps stories, best practices, and expertise. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and leave comments and questions for our speakers. Check out more FinOps content on our YouTube channel. We appreciate the support.